This week on Not Sauce for Work, Terry Tam is co-hosting, Eagle is producing. We discuss the allegations made by Brian Flores. We discuss texting etiquette, and we honor one of the great ones. On today's show, we'll also talk to Seth Galina of Pro Football Focus, so we can understand a little more about what we saw last Sunday. We'll get into this and much more on this episode of Not Sauce for Work on the Hot Sauce Sports Network. Welcome, everyone. You were listening to it, perhaps watching Not Sauce for Work on the Hot Sauce Sports Podcast Network. Terry, how's it going, buddy?
Very good. I just saw a stupid thing on Instagram. Somebody called the cops, and the cops broke down his door. He's like, "Get the fuck out of my place."
All right.
He called them. He pulled an Antonio Brown. He called the cops.
I was going to say, very Antonio Brown of him.
Yeah.
So I actually have an Antonio Brown story, but I'm waiting for it to be verified. It happened to a friend of mine. I'm waiting for that to be verified. I think we'll run with that probably next week because I'm still waiting on details. I wanted to ask you guys something. Do you guys have an inside joke with your friends that is so insanely dumb that, like, outside of your group of friends, it wouldn't even be funny? And I got one. So I'll go ahead with
like
mine.
100.
Yeah. Pick your favorite one. I'll go ahead with mine and give you guys some time to buy you guys some time. I have a friend of mine who lives he lives out of town. He lives in Hawkesbury. So whenever I go see him, I stay overnight. And we haven't gone over for a little while, but last time we were there, I told him I would bring some beer. So I picked up some beer, and the beer was called James Ready. I've never heard of this beer before, but I bought it because it's an awesome name.
Yes.
So brought a bunch of them to his place, and from that point on, once a week he'll text me or I'll text him, "Are you ready?" followed by James Ready from the other person. So like now he's like, "So what do you guys do you guys want to come up to Hawkesbury for March break? Because my wife and I work in a school, and so we'll be off during that time." And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I'm ready." To which he responded, "James Ready." It's the dumbest joke in the world. We both, I know that I audibly laugh out loud to the point where my wife sees me look at my phone and laugh, and she's like, "Oh, it's your friend." And the answer, of course, is always yes.
Yeah.
But again, I realize it's funny to nobody else in the world. I want to know you guys' version of that. What's your James Ready?
Eagle, do you have one?
Yeah, I have one. So, obviously, I'm a nerd, and I played a bunch of nerd games. So, one point I was playing, I kind of still do, Magic the Gathering. Yeah. It's like the card collectible game. So, there was one of the sets. There was
Virgins Unite.
Of course. There was a card called Thought Seize, which basically was a very powerful card at the point in time, and it was super rare to get. So, it had like a market value, like $50 for this piece of like cardboard, essentially. So one of my friends opened the pack and it had a Thoughtseize in it. So my other friend's like, "Oh, I want that. I'll give you $50 or whatever." And he's like, "No, I want it myself because I want to play with it myself and everything." And he goes, "Oh, come on." And like, "Okay, I'll give you this. I'll give you that, whatever." He's like, "I'll give you a blowjob for it," right? As almost like a joke. And like I was like, no, but okay, like he thought about it, type of thing.
That's the point.
And so from that point onwards, anytime we want something valuable, we offer a Thoughtseize as a comparison, basically saying, "I'm willing to suck your cock for it."
That's a good one. So we have that's actually a really good one because you have to have a hidden word for blowjobs in your group chat.
Yeah.
So ours is Moyaki. Remember Tony Moyaki, the tight end for the Chiefs? Mm-hmm. So for some reason we call blowjobs now Moyaki.
Nice.
So did you Moyaki here? And then if I say this to other people, they understand what I'm saying, which is weird because they don't know the inside joke. I also have an inside joke of me. Whenever I go to the border, I'm so nervous. Whenever I drive to the border, I'm so nervous.
Why?
So like I come off rude.
Are you bringing drugs across the border?
Like, no, I hate being detained. I hate being delayed. So I don't want them to give me any reason to say, "Okay, just pull over." I never do anything illegal. Okay, I don't want them to pull over. So there's times where they'll be like, "Where are you staying?" I'd be like, "Hotel." you know. So I have an inside joke, and my friends always say, every time like I answer a question of the border guy, they'll be like, "Hotel." They'll just make fun of me, you know.
Well, we have after a flag game once, we all used to go out to eat in our first few seasons when it was just like a group of friends or whatever. And so one night we decided after the game we're going to go to Plattsburgh to go to Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Because we wanted, there was Taco Bell in Canada, but we wanted the grade F meat. Like we wanted the real Taco Bell.
We don't want to not regret eating this.
Yeah, and like we used to play a game of roulette. We would take bets on who would get food poisoning. I was always the lowest paying odds because I get food poisoning. Like if you look at my food crooked, but so we're going to the border, and I'm in the car with a buddy of mine, and the guy at the border says, "Where are you guys going?" To which I answered, "Taco Bell." And then
it's an honest answer.
And then he looks at me. He's like, "I meant the city." I was like, "Oh, Plattsburgh. How long are you going?" I was like, "However long it takes me to eat some tacos."
Well, according to Google, drive-thrus take about 7 minutes, so I'll be back in 20 minutes.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, like I'm gonna go have some tacos, come back, and so this is the border agent who's American who's like, "Well, don't you guys have Taco Bell in Canada?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "But you go to Plattsburgh for Taco Bell." Yeah. He's like, "All right, go through." And then so we on the way back get to the border. Where are you guys coming from? The answer once again, because
Taco
I'm
Bell?
not thinking Taco Bell. And he's like, what? What city? I was like, "Oh, sorry, Plattsburgh." What was your reason for going? Taco Bell. How long were you there? 6 tacos. I didn't get pulled over.
One crunchy wrap supreme and 3 tacos. That's all.
I was driving back and my we're just silenced in the car for like 10 minutes because it's late. And I turned to my buddy. I said, "Man, it must be really easy to bring drugs across the border."
Oh yeah,
Like,
especially
you know
guys
what I mean?
that are specifically going across the border to
eat.
eat food.
Because it's believable. It is absolutely believable. That is what we went to do. But I think we got a really busy show. We're going to get to it. We do have a guest today from Pro Football Focus and the Too High podcast. Seth Galina joins us. He's a funny dude. He's a really insightful dude. So do stay tuned for that interview. But yeah, let's get to the news. Terry, it's the news.
Is it though?
Yeah, it is. I love that. That's always your answer, by the way. Low key, that's my funniest part. That's the funniest part of the bit for me is your answer every single time.
Yeah.
I was looking into this week and I was like, man, like, okay, maybe we'll get one big story and we'll have to fill out the rest of this episode. It's going to be tough. And then Tom Brady went full retirement. The story finally broke. He did actually finally retire. So there's that to talk about. And nothing else happened. Of course, the Brian Flores thing happened. We'll get to that in a second. But I do want to start with Tom Brady. As he got to bask in like everyone providing their commentary about how awesome he is. And then I said, whoa, I didn't retire. And then went ahead with retirement. It reminded me of Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer going to his own funeral and getting to see like all the people like mourning him kind of thing. It's like that's what the football community did for Tom Brady for like 48 hours before he actually retired. He got to like bask in it, which is kind of a cool experience, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think he played it off perfectly. Like he kind of leaked the information, accidentally, and then it's perfect. He leaked it and then played it off like, "Oh, I didn't leak it," and then everybody reacted, so he knew the temperature of how they were going to react. The Patriots fans started complaining. The rest of the football world were telling the Patriots fans they're babies. Not all Pats fans, though. I will say there's a select few. Specifically, Dave Portnoy.
Like 4 of them. There's 4.
Yeah, like Dave Portnoy was really mad that he didn't get.
Weirdly mad.
Yeah, and his
it
logic.
has to be an act, though, right? Like it can't be a real thing. Like
No. So there's a lot of things with Dave Portnoy, and I'm a big fan, and I like Dave Portnoy because he's straight up. But a lot of it is a bit, and you have to realize the bit. But this one wasn't, and the reason why I kind of backed him up after I heard his reasoning. He said, "I've only interacted with the police 3 times in my life. All 3 of those times were to support Brady and the Pats." He had the Roger Goodell thing. He got arrested. He got kicked out of the Super Bowl when they were in the Super Bowl in Atlanta against Atlanta. Like he's operated with the cops 3 times. So he's done these things for the Pats. So he expected a message for the Pats, as if Brady wasn't going to do it anyway. But like, anyway, he's a genius. He's a content genius, I will say.
Can we also add to the fact that he used this as a way to one up Ben Roethlisberger yet again?
Yeah, like go fuck yourself, Ben. Hey Ben, I heard your announcement. I got one better for you. Plus 5 Super Bowls.
And like the way he was like super nice to Roethlisberger when Roethlisberger retired too, in a way that's like he wins all the time. I heard this argument this week where Tom Brady, based on where he was drafted, based on his success, based on the fact that like he survived sort of some scandals with Deflategate and all that, based on the fact that everyone liked him at the end of his career and he didn't have like the fall off that Jordan Montana had. Is Tom Brady the greatest winner we've seen in sports? Not just by volume of wins, but like winning at like his everything, like from his personal life to his relationships with people, to like Jordan basically torched so many relationships and became so toxic in the end and was just a shell of himself. And we saw the same thing with like Gretzky and we saw the same thing with Montana just not looking the same in a Chiefs uniform. Like he left and he put on another uniform and he was better than he was in all the other years,
I'm going to say that, yes, Brady he's up there. You can't say no. The reason why I'm not saying he's the best winner of all time, because there's guys like, I mean, Michael Phelps, I know, like we could talk about how many gold medals he had. And
Serena Williams,
and all those
too,
people.
I think. I put Serena Williams up there, too, because...
Yeah, Serena Williams is a better example. Serena Williams is a better example. The reason why I wouldn't put Olympians in there is because Olympics is like once every 4 years. So if you don't win that one, I mean, I guess you could also talk about like
a ton in between that we just don't know about because who won
that's what I'm saying. Right? But like we measure them based on their Olympic medals. So I mean, I will put Michael Phelps up there and a lot of other Olympians as well. But Serena Williams, Djokovic, all the individual sports, you have to conclude them. But if you want to talk about like a team sport winner, it's hard for me to say that Brady, Gretzky, and Michael Jordan aren't the best winners of all time. Like, I don't know what other person you can mention. I mean, you could talk about, what's his name? Maurice Richard's brother, Henry Richard, 16 Stanley Cups. Okay, congratulations. You did that with 4 teams in the league. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, we can talk about these guys in the past.
But again, for me, it's also the expectation, right? Like, he was a backup to Drew Henson. He was a backup to Drew Bledsoe. He was a 6th round pick.
He was unexpected from the beginning. Like Joe Burrow, he was number 1 recruit coming out of college. Yeah.
He was drafted. He was the last remaining Montreal player to be drafted by the Montreal Expos who was active in sports.
It's crazy.
Right? Like that's wild.
And he was drafted in the 6th round, and he's a Cinderella story. Should have never his success would have never happened if Joe Bledsoe didn't get annihilated by Bart Scott in that game. Was it Bart Scott?
It was Mo Williams.
Mo Williams, exactly. If Drew Bledsoe didn't get annihilated on the sideline there, we never see this.
That's his claim to fame right there, Mo Williams, right? When he's talking to his grandkids in 2 years, like, the greatest of all time, that's because of me.
If it wasn't for me, you would still be watching Drew Bledsoe overthrow receivers.
If it wasn't for him, I'd be a happier Dolphins fan. If it wasn't for Mo Williams, I'd be a happier Dolphins fan.
Would you though? Because then you would have lost.
Won 2 Super Bowls.
Hey, Jay Fiedler and Ricky Williams would have had a chance. Okay.
Would you have been a happier Dolphins fan, or would you have been a sadder Dolphins fan knowing you lost to worse talent? Because the Dolphins would have ended up losing anyway.
Yeah, probably.
That's a shame.
The hell with you, Terry. No, but it's cool to see. And honestly, like I was one of those guys who hated on Brady because I was just tired of losing to him constantly. And then, like obviously, people made fun of like that first documentary that we saw where he kissed the sun on the lips. But I find as he's opened up and become less robotic, he's been likable. It's been fun. I found myself wishing he was just this for all 22 years.
Ever since that kid asked him a question at like media day. Was Super Bowl against the Falcons, and they asked him like, "Who's your role model?" And he's like, "My dad." And he starts tearing up. I'm like, he won me in that right there because you can tell sometimes when people are being like genuine or people are being fake, and there was a lot like it was genuine. And then there was the whole thing with him and Drew Brees, like throwing football to Drew Brees' kid and Drew Brees' last game. Like there's all that stuff that people don't realize, and people that talk about Brady, they like him. Not many people have said anything bad about him. The only person that says something bad about Brady is Antonio Brown.
Well, but there's also there's a lot of fans who like, you see all the memes and stuff about all the Super Bowls that had narratives around it. Like, to me, that's the most childish argument. The guy won the Super Bowl. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, like all those
the
circumstances. Kicker won the field goal.
Well, I mean, also, I look at those situations where it's like, okay, maybe in that particular game, the story was the defense or the turnovers or the tuck crew or whatever it is. But also, you played 16, 17, 18 other games to get you to that point, and who clutched a lot of those games out for the wins as well, right? So that also is part of the journey.
Yeah. It's lucky. It's lucky if he did it once. You know what I mean?
The amazing thing is
Nick Foles.
He won 7 Super Bowls. He won 7 Super Bowls and had a gap of 9 years where he didn't win a Super Bowl. That's inconceivable to me. He had a whole career in the middle of his career that was Hall of Fame worthy, where he didn't win a Super Bowl and still won 7.
And he ended his career. And he ended his career fresh off of a Super Bowl win and finishing at the top of the league in touchdowns and yards. So,
and if his team didn't fall apart around him, the oldest guy in the room who by not eating avocados stays healthy as shit, and everyone else around him is tearing ACLs. Gronk in the last game looked like he was going to start bleeding out of his eyes for how much pain he looked like he was in.
Yeah,
I can't imagine what Gronk's back feels like on a daily basis.
Gronk has lost all mobility in his hips, his legs. Like, he can't even move anymore, and he's still out there doing the fucking thing. And because Brady's putting it in the only spot where Gronk can catch it, we can't look at if we look back 20 years from now, I'm gonna be talking to my kids. I'm gonna be saying they're gonna be like, "Oh, how good was Brady?" I'd be like, Brady wasn't like, you watch him and you're like, oh wow, it's crazy. Like, that's Patrick Mahomes, that's Josh Allen, that's Joey B. Like, those are the guys. But like, Brady was like, if you watch his game, you're just watching because he's just so methodical. Everything he does is almost perfect. But he doesn't have a really strong arm, but he's accurate.
It's so much more impressive because he doesn't have the Aaron Rodgers skill set, because he doesn't have the Pat Mahomes skill set. Like, to me, he might be the greatest football player because he's not the most talented football player. You know what I mean? Like, to have that kind of achievement, it's kind of like what people say about Jerry Rice, right? Like, not the fastest guy, not the biggest guy, he didn't excel at anything over like some guys who are much more talented, but the fact that he just committed to being that level of excellent made him the greatest of all time. And to me, that's Tom Brady. He doesn't initially acknowledge the Pats. He eventually does, although he did it by Instagram story and not in a post. Where do you guys stand on this? Like, so we live in a social media age, right? So like, if you get a birthday acknowledgement on like a social media like story, is it the same thing as getting a post? Right? Like, it's the same. Because like, it's only 24 hours and it takes less work to put. But
a lot of people save their posts.
Fair.
I'm sorry. A lot of people save their posts and they put them in their little highlights and stuff. But like, you have to go look for that.
Who looks at someone's highlights? Exactly.
Like, it's very rare. Like, I'm going through highlights to see like plays. I'm not going highlights to see a thank you message to the Pats. Like, if you're doing a post, you're doing a post. But like, I liked his Twitter, the video that he posted there with the Mac Miller song and all that stuff. Like, that was cool. Like, I think he did it well. I think Brady handled this perfectly. He took his time. He thanked the right people at a certain time. And then in his Hall of Fame speech, that's going to be the one everybody's anticipating, if he makes the Hall of Fame. We don't know if he's going to make it or not.
No, he might not, because he didn't deserve all those Super Bowls, right?
Yeah, exactly. Adam Vinatieri is going to go accept it for him on his behalf and refuse to let Brady touch it. It's
interesting because we've seen sort of this shift where players having their own podcasts, having their own vehicles, LeBron James having the barbershop. LeBron James, if you notice, will never have a media availability unless it's like a pre or post game conference. He never makes himself available to just like ESPN or Hot Sauce Sports, for example, because he
can control the narrative.
Second on the list after ESPN, obviously,
Yeah, exactly. He controls the narrative that way.
And it's interesting because, like, to someone who thinks journalism is important, I don't think you get the most accurate information when someone obviously has a bias in giving you the best version of themselves, but it allows access in a way that we wouldn't otherwise have. So there's benefits to it. I'm curious to see how this all shakes out in the future, but we wouldn't have the access that we have to Tom Brady or Michael Jordan unless they gave that sign off, right? Unless they said, "Hey, I'm allowing you into my life, but you're going to tell the story I want you to hear." You know what I mean? So it's really uncomfortable in some ways, but I want to see how that develops. What is interesting about Tom Brady is he paired himself with Gotham Chopra, who is a legitimate journalist. Like, this guy worked in war zones reporting on bombs falling, and has decided in his second stage of life, I'm going to hang out with like Steph Curry and Tom Brady instead of risking my life every single day. So it's pretty cool to see that relationship blossom. So I will give Brady credit to that end, as he actually paired himself with a journalist, because maybe, to even win against douchebags like me who are going to point to journalistic integrity, he even found a way where I can't even really bash him for it, because he's probably doing the best way of all the guys who've done it that way,
Oh, big time. I mean, anyway, we can't say a bad thing about how Brady handles his career. Deflategate can fuck right off. Like, who cares?
Yeah, who gives a shit? It's air inside a ball. Who cares?
Like, I don't understand. Like, okay, that's a rule.
We never cared about it before. Let's stop pretending like we care about it now. The team got punished. It is what it is.
Yeah.
The next story broke because of a text sent by Brady's former head coach, Bill Belichick. He sent the wrong text to the wrong. Well, he sent the right text, but to the wrong person. So the only place we're going to start at first is not actually the controversy, of course, but what was the most regrettable time you sent the wrong text?
Oh, I'm remembering a moment. Okay, have you ever like screenshot a conversation and then try to send it to somebody else? Like, I forgot the moment exactly, but
and
I
you sent it to the person you're talking about?
Exactly, yeah.
All the time.
And then I tried to backtrack really quick. I'm like, I took the wrong screenshot, sorry. And I pulled that, and they're like, "Oh, okay," but they're like, they don't really know.
There's no way they believe you.
I mean, they have no reason to not believe me, but they're like, "Was he trying to talk shit about me?" Like, then they'll probably read the messages to see exactly what I was saying. I forgot what the situation was. I'll remember it. I have an awful memory lately. Like, I watched the last two, like season 5 and season 6 of Ray Donovan, and every episode I'm like, I've seen this, and I'm like, oh, this is where I left off, and then every episode I'm like, oh, this is where I left off, and now I finally gotten to a point. 20 episodes later, I'm like, I never saw this.
So
maybe
20 episodes, I forgot what happened. 20 episodes.
Has it actually been cleared of exactly what mistake Bill Belichick made when it came to this test? Because my understanding, the way I'm interpreting it, is he heard...
White Bill, Black Bill. It's White Bill, Black Bill.
Is it actually that, though?
Because he takes Black Bill.
Because the way...
he takes a Black Bill, he wants to take White Bill.
That was my initial thoughts, but then the more I'm reading into it, it seems like he read the message from the Giants or whoever told him the information.
0%. That's 100%
said
it
was Brian, and then was like, okay, congratulations, and like, wait, no, which Brian are you talking about, right?
Oh, backtrack, big time backtrack.
It's 100% a backtrack, and I'll get into why, because that's a super, super important detail. But before that, Eagle, I need to know about your mistext history. Again, stop burying the important details by trying to distract us with news.
Yeah, with facts.
Come on.
I mean, I text you to let you know that I'm outside to pick you up, and then you don't answer, so I have to text your wife instead, and then she's like, new phone, who dis? So that always happens.
You're the worst.
Yeah.
You're terrible.
Who dis?
This is why you're not on camera. 100%.
Yes, correct.
On my 29th birthday, I got the most drunk I've ever been. It wasn't even a milestone birthday. There was no reason for it.
I was there for that party, I think.
No, you weren't. No, that was
another party then?
That was the year before, and believe me, as drunk as I was on my 30th, I was not as drunk on I was way more drunk on my 29th. I threw a bag of vomit at the CBC. That's how drunk I was.
At the CBC?
At the CBC.
What's the CBC?
The CBC, like the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
What do you mean you threw it at them?
At the building. I took a bag of vomit and I threw it at it. One of my bosses had taken me out drinking, and all my friends were there. I got obliterated, and the next morning, I took a sick day because I was obliterated, and texted my boss. Yeah, man, I got super wrecked. I can't come in today, man. I'm super hungover. Except it wasn't, man. It was my other boss.
Oh, woman.
Woman who was very unhappy with me.
Sir.
But like, you should be allowed to take a sick day for being hungover, because you are sick.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Sickness you brought into yourself, but it's still sickness.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, let's get into Eagles topic, because so the lawsuit, first of all, at first it was made to seem as though he was suing specific organizations, the Dolphins, the Broncos, and so on and so forth. He's actually suing. He's trying to build a class action lawsuit. The lawyers are the same lawyers who represented the victims of the Harvey Weinstein case, so they have experience in class action.
Please tell me you saw the name of one of the guys.
Sorry?
Please tell me you saw the Greekest name of all time.
Yes, I'm not going to even pretend that I can pronounce it, but yes.
John Alefterakis. Love it. It's my name. His last name is my real first name.
Yeah, as the opposite of a writerakis is a left.
Exactly. He's a Alefterakis.
Yeah. So it's a class action suit alleging that there is a systemically racist issue and hiring practices in the NFL, and that he specifically was a victim to it. The smoking gun in this case is Bill Belichick's text, because the text was received congratulating Brian Daboll before Brian Flores even went for an interview, thus showing that the interview
that's
was
what
a
it
challenge.
is.
Yeah, and I don't blame you for.
I never understood what it was.
I don't blame you for not reading the entire article, Terry, because it took me the entire morning. It was so long and so dense with information that I literally had to take out a notepad and write stuff down, because I just it's so much information, so much legalese all in one article that it made it really difficult to read. But that to Eagle's point, that is the smoking gun. Now again, the backtracking is basically Robert Kraft or whoever else meeting with Bill Belichick saying like, yeah, Bill, you screwed up, but we need to change the look of this, because this is going to be used against us in court. You know what I mean? So that's what I believe the backtracking to be. The thing that's easy to prove is the systemic racism in the NFL, because if you look at the bulk of coaches being former players, that is factual, right? It's something like 80% or 90% of coaches were former players. But then if that's true, 70% of players are black, but there's such a vast minority of white coaches that it doesn't seem logical, right? Like you would imagine that if your pool is largely ex-players and most of them are black, you would at least be close to 50-50, right?
Sure.
But so if you're hiring the person who's most qualified and your larger pool is people who are black, the contrary assumption is they're being told essentially by the inaction that their lack of qualification is by skin color. You know what I mean? Because
I'm not saying that there isn't something to be fixed. I wouldn't say that there's systemic racism.
Just based on the stats,
built in. If you look at the stats, yeah, stats also tell us a lot of things that aren't true. Not that aren't true, but that could be interpreted differently if you look at stats. If you look at the amount of police brutality versus white people versus black people, then obviously, but the stats tell you otherwise only because of population. So I mean, we can look.
No, but that's percentage-wise. If you look at percentage-wise, it's much higher against black people than against white people.
So
exactly,
Terry, I think at bare minimum, you have to accept that the systems in place to prepare people to be coaches are favoring white coaches over black coaches. At bare minimum, you have to go with that approach, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. I'm not disagreeing with that. I think Brian Flores is well deserving of a coach of a position. Now, the only thing, the Rooney Rule is in place to make sure that you interview at least one person of color, right? That's basically the rule. Now, they had to go the rule, but they're interested in Brian Daboll. Mm-hmm. Right? They're interested in this person. They interviewed him. They liked him. The only issue is that, it's happened in every company where you know the person you're going to hire. You just have to interview people maybe to get a different view. I don't know what the fuck. Okay. But in this situation.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
In this situation, I think that is just is awful mistimed text that gave Brian Flores all the ammo. I don't think that he didn't get the job because he's black. I think that he got fired. And he's not getting the same opportunities that other people will because maybe there is some sort of inherent prejudice towards black coaches for some reason. I'll give you
the reason. It's super simple. It's the same reason it happens at any other company in the world. It's because the decision makers, and I don't think it's something purposeful. I don't think it's done particularly with malice, although in some cases it might be. I think that the power brokers in this industry, like most industries, are all white people, and people tend to hire people with which they have things most in common.
Your boys,
right?
Yeah.
So until you see changes in ownership, the Rooney Rule doesn't work because what happens is you get token interviews, and that's the problem with the Brian Flores thing. Is if they truly decided on Dable and then interviewed Brian Flores, that means the Rooney Rule at this point is just creating token candidates,
Exactly.
which is the opposite effect of
Yeah,
what
which is it's exactly why I didn't like the Rooney Rule at first, because it's like, okay, all you're doing is forcing them to interview, but if the problem like all you're doing is just giving this person an avenue to be interviewed for a position that they want. Fine, that's good. That's great. That's okay.
I think it's more than that. One, it's giving them experience in interviewing for a head coach position, which they may not have gotten otherwise. And two, maybe the interview goes really well and you go, holy shit, this is our guy, right? Like instead of you never inviting them to have that conversation at all.
So I think that the rule is in place to help that, but I also think that what it does is there's no billionaire that's gonna be told what to do. Right. So if the billionaires are being forced what to do based on the rule, then they're gonna do that. But if they're forced to be like, no, you have to hire a black coach, they're not gonna do it just out of like spite almost. You know what I mean?
Funny story coming out of New York. Apparently, Mara actually did want Flores, but because of all the bad press about Mara meddling in the team affairs, she actually took a step back and let the GM run the entire hiring process. But apparently he almost stepped in and said, no, I want Flores as my guy.
That could be a cop-out, an easy cop-out. I mean, but listen,
I agree with
Brian
you.
Flores, he's going to get a job. It might not be this year, but he'll get a job eventually.
Well, I don't think he will. At this point,
he's apparently for the Texans job, which is interesting.
He has to get a job now, Pease, because if the NFL doesn't give him a job now, they look awful because he has the proof. He has the receipts. He has it all.
It's hard to hire someone who's suing you, though. There's not really a precedent for that.
I mean, you're right. You're right. There isn't a precedent for that, but there's
at the very least, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I think it's going to get thrown out of court because while we can both sit here and say there's a problem, like while we have differing opinions, you and I, Terry, we both know there's a problem, right? Like we agree there's an issue, right?
There's something there. There's definitely something there.
Exactly. So, but the problem is going to be there's not a precedent to create a class for a specific job title, like you would, for example, people who bought a pharmaceutical product or people who were abused by a specific person. Because you're looking at 32 different employees. I know it's all the NFL, but it's 32 different employees and a bunch of different candidates, and the opportunities vary. So it's a huge issue. What you can prove for sure is hiring practices and the fact that black NFL coaches get on average a year and a half less tenure than white coaches, right? So
I agree 100%. I agree. I mean, we're seeing it, right? It's like, I mean, Mike Tomlin is the one example that we can say he's been there forever, but the Steelers are notorious for just keeping coaches forever. You know what I mean? So they're somebody that we can kind of ignore in this situation.
And you know what? I'll give them credit because the Rooney Rule was because of them.
Exactly.
And they're the one who gave the guy who the Miami Dolphins said Mike Tomlin was too hip hop because, you know, I guess he's rapping during practice or something.
Was it Stephen Ross? Was it Stephen Ross that said that?
No, it wasn't Stephen Ross. It was I forget his name. He was it was a guy who was hired to find a new CEO who chose himself and then didn't hire Mike Tomlin and instead went with Cam Cameron.
Okay, so he pulled an Adam Gase. He's like, yeah, I'm just gonna make it myself. Oh no, he pulled a Bill Polian. I'll be the GM. Fuck it.
But yeah, so and then of course amidst all this, John Harbaugh doesn't get hired by the Vikings after a 9-hour interview. I don't know what you're talking about for 9 hours, but then also decides to stay at Michigan. My first thought was, they used the NFL to get a raise from Michigan. But what it looks like this might be was just Harbaugh was like, yeah, this is too hot for me right now. Don't want to get embroiled in controversy my first year. So my question is, do the Dolphins hire David Culley and then fire him after a year no matter what happens?
Yeah, I think that's the move. I mean, I think it has to be. How long did he sign for?
Who?
Jim Harbaugh with Michigan.
1 year.
There you go. There's the answer.
He signed an extension for 1 year.
Let it cool down. I'll come back.
If that happens, that they hire him after this, that they hire a minority candidate and fire him after a year, like let's say he's like 9-7 or 9-8 or whatever.
But that's the thing is like that was the point I was trying to make is that a lot of these other coaches are getting multiple opportunities. Other than Hugh Jackson, I can't tell you of a black coach that
David Culley waited like till his 60s and then was fired after we would all call a very successful year in Houston based on the situation.
100%. I mean, what he did in Houston this year was crazy. I mean, that team is awesome.
And then of course the Eric Bieniemy, like the arguments there. And again, just to me, it's not about specific. Like I think we get too bogged down in specific candidates, and not the general problem, which is lack of minority ownership, lack of minority opportunities. Because again, Terry, I think you're right. I don't think it's them not choosing them specifically because they're black, but because the culture is what it is.
Yeah.
Until that changes, we're going to continue seeing this problem.
Yeah, I agree.
So that was a lot of information in a short period of time. The reason why is because we have a great interview with Seth Galina. We were expecting to not have that much to talk about, so we got a great guest from Pro Football Focus. He's going to make us all smarter about football. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to the host of the Too High podcast, Seth Galina. And we're back because we totally recorded these segments in order. Joining us now is Seth Galina of the Too High podcast. He's doing some great work with Pro Football Focus. Terry and I have actually known Seth a long time. And I've always liked, Seth, outside here, I always liked your combination of incredible football analysis, and I find you to be a very funny person because I really do enjoy the dry sense of humor. So it's a pleasure to have you here. But the reason we brought you on, and I know you're great at X's and O's and understanding the game, is it better to rent a water tank or to buy a water tank? Because
good question.
Eagle now has me doubting it. I can't think of anything else. I don't know. Am I wasting money here? I'm renting. I don't know if I'm wasting money.
Well, I think the first thing you need to do is figure out your like water consumption issues, like your personal issues with showering, with keeping yourself overly clean.
Yeah.
Because you can be overly clean, of course. And then let's talk about, like, we're not even close to talking about water tanks right now with you. Yeah. Like, get to a normal human level of shower maintenance, and then we can talk.
Yeah, because P's taking 2 half-an-hour showers a day is 1 banana lands. I take like total of 30 minutes showers a week, I'd say.
That's nonsense.
Yeah, and you always think you're in the shower. It's funny you say like 30 minutes a week, but that's probably a normal amount. You always think you're in the shower for like an hour each time, but you're probably in there for like 6 minutes or something like that.
Oh, I had the time today, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to put on a podcast I got for Christmas. I got like this waterproof Bluetooth speaker. It's in my shower. I'm going to put on a podcast. I'm going to listen to something. I got in there. I got out before like the intros were done. What do you do in there for half an hour?
That's I don't understand.
Yeah.
Well, it's not really half hour. My wife exaggerates, and Eagle likes but it is long. Like like say an average shower is actually 5 minutes. I probably go 10. I had a lot of products to keep the beard soft, the hair from being more white than it has to be, keeping it from looking like just a giant ball of, what's that material they use to make Nerf balls? That stuff.
It's Nerf. That's the material. It's a finite resource too. That's the problem.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's why I don't shave it off. That's why I'm lucky to still keep the hair, because I know once it's gone, I can't travel back to the 80s to when Nerf was popular and repopulate my head. So it's important to keep it clean. That's why I spend that much time.
According to Google, your water tank will cost you 3 to 4 times more on average by renting it rather than buying it.
No, but the reason why it's better renting is because of the maintenance, from what I heard. So
when was the last time you did maintenance on your water tank, Terry?
I'm going to need to, man, because every time I turn on the water, the thing just starts fucking going nuts.
It's a cylinder with water in it. How much maintenance can there be? It's the same as a water glass, but bigger.
It makes a lot of noise right now, so I need to maintain that, and I don't know how.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Just put a towel over it. That's probably fine. Seth, I do have some questions about what we saw last weekend. It always fascinates me to talk to somebody who sees the game the way you do.
Intelligently.
Yeah, because obviously as fans, we sort of have our own biases, and we obviously see what's on the TV screen, but you have access to seeing a lot more. what we saw from the Bengals in the second half, why is it the Chiefs don't run, and is it just ego?
Yeah, I think that's always an interesting question about just running the football in general and calling runs in general. But I think especially with Patrick Mahomes and all the success that they've had throwing the football for the past 4 years, it's tough. It's tough. Like, the big plays are there. Yeah. And it's always tough to just live in a world where you're saying, our kind of best play, barring a breaking run for 50 yards, but our best play is going to be 6.5 yards. Yeah. And it's like, that's a hard thing. And I'm not good at it. When I've called plays in my life, like it's bad. Like I have the problem too, where I'm just like, I need to score a touchdown on every play. I'm very impatient like that. So like, I understand that they had it. I mean, and the offensive line for the past, let's say the second half of the season in the playoffs has been really good. It's finally gelled, especially in the run game. I think they still have some pass protection issues, and I don't think the Orlando Brown trade was like worth it in that sense. But the interior started to gel, and the two tackles played better in the run game, and they were just mashing people. The two Steelers games were great. This game against the Bengals, they were mashing people, and whenever they wanted. It's funny because they had started to get into some more interesting style of runs, and then in this Bengals game, it was pretty straightforward. Zone with a backside tight end, not really doing much, and like they were still getting a whole bunch of yards. So I do think it's, I don't know if I want to say the word ego, kind of, but it kind of is ego. Just like we could have got that the whole day, and we could have kind of ran out the clock doing that.
Yeah.
But it's always tough when you have Patrick Mahomes, because there were plays to be made. I mean, there's that little toss he throws over the top to Kelsey. There's the play to Tyreek Hill across the middle, and then there's the interception to Tyreek Hill where he throws a really good ball. It's just good coverage by Bates, and then unlucky to get it tipped in the air, and have it intercepted by Von
Wait,
Bell.
no, I thought that was. I mean, you're gonna tell me I'm wrong, but I thought that was like a dump throw. Tyreek Hill's 5'6", and he's going for a jump ball in between two DBs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I get it, but I think so. What the issue with that play, and I have to remember it, but I think he just waited. He Von Bell made a really good play of kind of being in between Kelsey's route and Tyreek Hill's route.
Yeah.
And I think that there was a play to be made earlier to Kelsey if you would have just rifled the ball in there, and you kind of waited too long. Now, obviously, it becoming a jump ball is a little bit of a problem for sure, but he has position on him. Like Tyreek Hill does have position on him.
He does.
And this is always the issue, right? Like with this offense right now, is that they're not in a great world right now, especially with the defenses they're seeing, to be creating these explosive plays on these deep crossing routes that they did for fucking 4 straight years. Sorry for the square.
No, don't worry about it, man.
That's the issue they've had so far with like everyone's playing too high coverages against them, and whatever coverage within that family it is. And they're having a tough time with those crossers. So it's like when they've been able to get them, and the Bengals gave them some opportunities. And you saw a really nice completion in the first quarter, I believe, onto Tyreek Hill on one of these deep crossing routes. Mm-hmm. When they played one high, they played a lot of one robber coverages. And like and again, it's like an ego thing. It's like Mahomes is like, I got it. I got one-on-one. I'll just put the ball up there. Yeah. And obviously you're hoping you lead him and he just runs free. The ball's a tiny bit underthrown and it becomes a jump ball situation. But it is that weird like turnover luck thing where, 9 times out of 10 that ball just gets knocked down and it falls on the turf, and then they punt and maybe they even get the ball back, but instead he gets a turnover.
So if you're looking at football, I mean, analytically, and you're looking at like, okay, situations he did this and this and this. Does Patrick Mahomes make the least mistakes, or is he more like a gung-ho kind of guy where he's like, you just expect him to just kind of wing it on every single play?
I think one of the things with Mahomes that's been really great his first 4 years that wasn't quite there at Texas Tech was those, what we call at PFF turnover-worthy plays. Like, you always had that unbelievable playmaking ability. And I never went back and rewatched like the all 22 of him in college, but I would imagine that savant of like how he would manipulate defenders with his eyes. Obviously, his like in structure play is underrated because we always talk about him running around and doing all those plays. He is one of the best I've ever seen playing like just on time in structure. So I think that was one of the big things, was like he cut down on those turnover type of plays by so much in his first 4 seasons. And this year was a lot of bad turnover luck. I mean, they were very good on offense, and a lot of that had to do with, I think they did have foundational issues with their offense, but so much of it, and we kept, everyone kept talking about it during at least the first half of the season, all these tip ball interceptions. You know what I mean? And he was making a little more of the actual turnover-worthy plays, but there were also plays that were not his fault that ended up in interceptions more than he's ever had in his career. But like himself has been, over his career, been a lot better than I think people expected coming out of Texas Tech.
And I mean, you don't want to coach that completely out of him, because part of what makes them special is sort of what he does off schedule. But on the other side, on the other game, we saw Matt Stafford, of course, making it to the Super Bowl. I'm a Georgia fan, Seth, so I've been on the Matt Stafford is a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback his entire career. Please tell me I'm right.
Well, I mean, look, you would have liked to see a little bit more in Detroit, and I know the Detroit's cursed, so maybe that's really why.
Obviously, yeah.
But like
versus the next analytical thing that PFF will be putting out, of course, is Detroit curseness. It's
just exactly. That's real where our data scientists are working on right now. Like I was excited. I was like always cautiously optimistic about what Matt Stafford would be in Sean McVay's offense, because he just does such a good job of getting people open. And I think it's been overall, it's been a lot better than I would have ever imagined. And there were some stretches where it was like, oh, what's going on here? But like, honestly, they've been red hot in the playoffs. And a lot of that has to do with Stafford's ability to read out progressions. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Like, with Goff, it was a lot of, if number one wasn't open, and Pease, you and me both know what happens when we're playing quarterback and number one isn't open. It's not good.
Panic.
So why? He should be open according to this paper on my wrist.
I said he was open.
This paper said he was open. What the fuck is going on?
So, and with Stafford, you just have a guy who can read up progressions. And the crazy thing to me is how perfect the fit ended up being, bringing in Odell Beckham, because so much of his catches have been on the backside of concepts, and just being able for Stafford to say, all right, one's not there, two's not there, three's not there, I got the backside dig, I got the backside inbreaker, which he was running in Cleveland. But now they do run it, the Rams and the Browns run this specific route a little bit different. However, he was doing this, running these routes in Cleveland, and Baker was just not getting the ball to him.
Well, because Baker has that mentality of like touchdown all the time, like you were saying before, right? Like he just wants it all the time. I love him for it.
And I swear to fucking God, he was good at this as a rookie, and then everything just collapsed.
It's so frustrating.
I don't know what happened. I was so high on him after his rookie season. I was like, oh my God, it's over. Like, this is the quarterback, because he was on time, his footwork was good, and then everything started. He was off rhythm all the time. His footwork just sucks now.
He cares too much about not caring about people's opinions. You know what I mean? Like that's Baker's problem.
That's the main thing.
Yeah. He cares too much about not caring, and he's so good, and I'm such a Baker fan. I'm never gonna give up on him. Like I was telling Pease about this a couple weeks ago. There's specific players that I'll never give up on, no matter how bad they're playing. I'm kind of that way with Baker. I was that way with Sam Darnold. I'm kind of like a little bit off that right now, but I was like, just give him a chance, and he got his chance this year, and he fucked it up. So anyway, it is what it is. But like Baker, I still think we have like 2 really good seasons out of him. Like he'll have good seasons where we look at him and be like, okay, he wasn't that bad.
But how much of the footwork and body control issues was related to the fact that he played, I want to say, 8 games in a body cast?
Well, this season, yeah, he was. It was.
Like he was
yeah, the
really
injuries. But it's been the issue with him is like, and I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Terry. Kind of where it's like, okay, the rookie year was really good, and then year 2 stunk, and then year 3 under Stefanski,
Playoffs.
the second half of the season was awesome.
Yeah.
And now here's year 4 where he stinks again. So it's like there's clearly a good quarterback under there somewhere.
I just don't understand what's going on with like Jarvis Landry. Like when Landry and Beckham were there, it's like, okay, this is a recipe, and they had Njoku. Like this is a good offense, and then the offensive line was good, and they just couldn't get it done. And I don't know what happened with. I mean, nobody really knows what happened between him and OBJ, but it could have been great. But OBJ needed a guy who just has a pair of balls like Matthew Stafford. That's
it though. Like he needed like. Baker was just going to shy away from contact sometimes and run around in the backfield. I'm like, that's not Stafford. Stafford's going to sit in there. Now, I will say, like, the Rams' offensive line has been a lot better than I think a lot of people thought it would be. Yeah. You know, Whitworth and Havenstein on the tackles playing at a pretty high level this season, at an extremely high level this season, has helped a lot. And the interior has done a good job keeping him clean, too. So that has allowed him to get through all these progressions. But yeah, it just fits perfectly. I don't even want to know what that offense looks like with Robert Woods back. Now, I don't think they'll re-sign Beckham because I don't think they probably don't have enough money, but that would be nasty. I mean, they're going to win the Super Bowl anyway, so like, who cares?
Yeah,
but it would be nasty with Robert Woods back.
Well, I was going to say, if McVay this year decides to turn off his mic early on in plays, Stafford can read the field, right? It's not going to be Goff all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's literally it though. Like he was done with this. He didn't want to do this anymore. It was too hard to like always be, to always get the right call. And now he can be wrong, and Matthew Stafford will make him right. Plus you get all the other stuff that Stafford has, which is that like cannon, right? Yeah. So like their first play action of the year, maybe the third play of the season or something like that against the Bears. You roll him out, set up, and then, he flips his hips and he's hitting that fucking corner post route for a touchdown against the Bears. And it's like, okay, I'll set you up for that type of stuff with our running game and the play action, and you just use the cannon. And then that's great. We always have that in the back pocket, but I can just call as many straight dropbacks and just have you sling it around the yard as much as I want, which I can do with Goff.
Before we get to your boy Joey B, I wanted to ask you about Jimmy. I mean, Jimmy G. Like right now, they're saying they're going to trade him. He's trade bait. I said I feel like he fits well in Pittsburgh. I don't know if that's a situation or not. What do you think, Jimmy? What's going to happen with Jimmy G? I want to know which offense loves a check down the most, because that's where Jimmy G's going.
Yeah, Jimmy G is an interesting story. I don't feel comfortable talking about him so much right now at this very moment because he was so ass on the weekend that I'm like, he should never be allowed on
ass. It's not just one game.
He should never be allowed on a football field ever again.
He had a solid first half against the Cowboys.
Don't worry, Seth. You can say it. You can say it because Garcia won't come after you because you're not a woman. So you're okay.
Exactly. You're safe.
Right. Exactly. I'm safe.
You're safe.
I'm safe. He's just it was so bad. Yeah, you're right. Not just in the Rams game, but in the other games too. It was just horrific. So it's like I'm like, this guy should be backup. I think some team will take a chance on him. Yeah. I do wonder, and it's funny, we just had this conversation on my podcast. That would be the Too High podcast.
Excellent.
Good name.
About who controls the offense, especially at the NFL level. It's like, the quarterback kind of controls a lot of what's going on.
Yeah.
And we always go back to the same example, which is the Seahawks. No matter who the fuck they bring in to run the offense and call plays, guess what offense it is? It is the Russell Wilson offense.
Yeah.
So when I look at Jimmy Garoppolo and his limitations, like no matter where he goes, like you got to run the Jimmy Garoppolo offense. So like it's really about like who has the pieces around him rather than like the fit in terms of scheme. And so that, if you want to go to Indianapolis and have a good running game and throw some okay receivers, and I think certainly like Pittman's been okay, and they'll have to eventually going to find a place from T.Y. Hilton. And then the other side is like, okay, well, the Pittsburgh doesn't have an offensive line, but they have all the skill players. So like you got to figure out which one fits you as a quarterback. But again, like I said, I mean, this guy was the Rams busted so many coverages that like there's about 20 quarterbacks in the league that would have won that game for the 49ers, except for Jim.
Except for Jim.
So it's bad.
That's rough.
Does Dak win that game for them?
Yes.
Dak is the best quarterback in the league. So no, he's. We don't have to get into the Dak talk. You guys gotta have me back for Dak.
We'll talk about Dak in the postseason.
Yeah, we're a pro Dak podcast, to be honest.
Good. Okay. Good.
The question now regarding the other quarterback, of course, playing in the Super Bowl, Joe Burrow, because again, he gets mentioned last, even though he seems to be the last story, even though it's the most exciting story for the actual Super Bowl. What can he ascend to based on what you've seen in terms of his growth in a single season? Other than Josh Allen, I can't remember a single quarterback making a stride this great in a second season.
I'm curious though, when exactly are you guys going to ask me about all the times I picked off peas?
Oh,
is that ever going to happen? Or
well, I mean,
you're going to have to throw it in casually, like now.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's three people on the show.
Least, I imagine.
There's three
You're
people
not
on the show
special.
that
I
have
throw so many.
Like,
It's not special if I pick you off.
You would be one. You know what? Just I'll put it back on myself. Like if you pick me off, you would be one of thousands who would pick me off. So.
We're in the same boat when it comes to that.
We are definitely in the same boat.
We're on. This is a very pro interception podcast.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Terry had 700 game ones.
Yeah.
No, he
recently.
didn't.
Yeah, recently. How many of those were pick sixes? I think like three.
Yeah.
You play Division F? What's going on?
It was literally the worst division, and he threw 7 interceptions in 6.
It was also Eagle. You're fucking the roster I was handed. Okay.
Yeah, you had me as WR1.
Yeah, exactly. Just to give you an example. But no, I played like shit that game, like absolute garbage.
Yeah, we've all been there. We've definitely all been there.
Okay, I'm never playing quarterback again. I just decided after that.
What you're saying is Joe Burrow is us.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, sure.
That's the comparison?
Yeah.
Joe Burrow is great. I think that it's funny I think he was always going to be this way. And I think one of the things that I talked about last offseason, even before the season started, and I want to continue to talk about is they were never going to be as bad as they were throwing down the field as they were in 2020. It's like it was impossible for them to be as bad, from receivers not making plays in one-on-one situations, to Burrow missing targets on one-on-one situations down the field, to the scheme not being good enough to get people open down the field. It was so bad. And obviously you bring in Jamar Chase, who is that vertical straight line type of route runner. And now Burrow was already good up to 20 yards, let's say. He was last year. The accuracy, we saw it. It was right away, right off the bat, from his first game. The accuracy was there. The reads were there on that side of the field. And his reads were there down the field. They just couldn't connect with anybody. So, it was never going to be that bad. And now we're seeing it probably overcompensate in the other direction with how good his connection with Jamar Chase has been down the sideline, basically. Whether it's an over-the-top 9-ball or a back shoulder ball, the connection has been insane. So I think it was always there. I think, yes, he has obviously gotten better and stuff like that. He, getting a real off season, instead of the one where you're drafted in is probably a lot better, but for your development. But he's always been that good, and they're getting the positive end of regression this year, especially on their deep passes.
So when I look at this matchup, and I can't, the only thing I can't look past is the pass rush of the Rams versus the offensive line of the Bengals, and that's I think, and Joe Mixon's going to have a rough day because he won't be able to get anywhere near 3 yards Like I don't think he'll have to make some crazy plays, and Joey B is going to have to be on his feet. He's going to have to play a better game than he played in the second half last week, and which is saying something because the Rams they look like they have no weak spots all across the board, and it's going to be fun to see like Ramsey against Chase or whatever they end up doing matchup wise, which I assume that's going to be the matchup. T. Higgins might be the guy that's just has a crazy game. But I just don't see the W for the Bengals. I'm still money on the Bengals though because there's no money on the Rams. But I'm going money on the Bengals. Right. But realistically, I just don't see it happening for Joey B. And I want him to win. I would love to see the Bengals win a Super Bowl this year.
I think like that matchup, the Rams defensive line versus the Bengals offensive line. Could you get a worse matchup between two teams in the NFL? Like I don't know, it's a Super Bowl.
We thought that was going to be the story last week, and they played. I mean, they did decently well against the Chiefs, but now it's a different beast. Right?
Well, so one of the issues was that Burrow was like, especially like just right away off the bat in that game, he was like, "I'm not sticking around in here.
Yeah,
I'm getting the ball out." And then obviously by the end he had to make some plays with his legs, and he did because he's a fucking baller.
Yep.
And but I just think like this is even worse. Like you watch the Bengals, like when I rewatch those games, from the coach's angle, I'm like, especially the offense. The defense has played really well, but the offense, I'm like, there's no way this team has won 3. They should have won 0 games, especially like halfway through the Raiders game in the first week of the playoffs. They should have won 0 games, and they have a horseshoe up their butt, and that's great. It's great. Like I'm excited for Burrow and Chase as an LSU fan, but like this matchup against the 5 that they put out there, the Rams, is no good. It's really no good. Now, the thing that, and I wrote about this, you can go to pff.com and find my article on this. Even though the individual players do not match up well, I mean, like Von Miller and Leonard Floyd on the outside, and then Ashawn Robinson, who's having a really great playoffs, and he's really just a really good player. Greg Gaines is a good nose too, and then of course, literally the best player of all time, Aaron Donald, as well. So you have 2 Hall of Famers on that line. Going against freaking Quentin Spain and Trey Hawkins, and whether it's going to be Hakeem Adeniji or Jackson Carman and Jonah Williams, like it's so bad. It's such a bad matchup. But what the Rams do is they will play with those 5 guys. And usually when we talk about a defensive line, especially in this age of football, we think about a 4-man defensive line. That's what every team plays, right? For our whole lives, like 4-man defensive line. Because they play with a 5-man defensive line, you're allocating resources in different parts of your defense. So if you play with 5 defensive linemen, then you have less players in the secondary levels. So, if you have less players in the secondary levels, then you have space for Burrow to attack quickly. Yeah. And especially because they will also play with 2 high safeties. Again, listen to the 2 High podcast. They will play with 2 high safeties. So if you're saying we're going to play with 2 high safeties, so that's like a 4 across shell with the 2 safeties and the 2 corners deep. And we are living in a world where we're playing with 5 defensive linemen. That does not leave a lot in the intermediate level. So you can attack that space before the pass rush gets to you. Now, the second the Rams say, fuck it, we're going with a 4-man, 4-down lineman, they still have the advantage in the pass rush and the defensive line. And you get the bodies you need in the second level. So like that, they could just decide to do that. And I don't think it'll be good for the Bengals. Man, like I said, they got a horseshoe up their butt, but this is a fucking hard matchup for them. It's just really bad right now. The offensive line is horrible.
Yeah, I'm not. Sorry, go ahead, please.
No, go ahead because I was gonna finish off the interview, but you asked your question, Terry.
So, I mean, is it possible? Like, I know you seem optimistic, maybe a little biased, but is it possible that Joey B just goes nuts on this defense because of that point that you said where there's not going to be as many people in the secondary? Maybe T. Higgins, like I said before, T. Higgins underneath, at the 10 to 12 yard range. I think that's going to be money for them. I mean,
maybe Ramsey
I don't
gets
watch
exposed again, like the 1-on-1 against Evans.
Maybe, hopefully, but like I'm not analytical like you are.
I think that's what it is, though. I think, like if Ramsey locking down Chase, I do think, like you said, I do think they'll play him. They'll try and probably shadow him. Ramsey locking down Chase that's tough because now you can just allocate everyone else to the 3 receiver side or wherever away from Chase.
Well,
And that's tough.
And the Bengals, to your point, like they do isolate Chase a lot.
Yes.
Like that's what they want to do is force you to put 2 players to put a safety over top or risk going 1-on-1, right? So, but now the 1-on-1 is Ramsey. So, what's your thoughts there?
Yeah. So then now, and the thing is, like Chase is super physical, but Ramsey's probably underrated physical. Has like underrated physicality. He's just all. I mean, he's a complete corner, right? He has everything. So then, your point about T. Higgins over the middle. That's it. That is it. And we saw it at times in that Chiefs game, especially on the 2 drives that led to field goals that won them the game. The one in the fourth quarter and the one in overtime, like Chase over the middle, T over the middle. 5 yard ins. Like it's nothing. But like you got to be able to consistently make that play. So I think that's the play. And then, if they want to go with a single high safety and leave isolated receivers on the outside, hey, T can win that matchup too. Darius Williams is not great right now, and he has a size advantage over him. So I really think this could be a T. Higgins type of game.
So you're saying there's a chance.
So what we'll do is, because I do want to get into a lot of other stuff, I'll tease a potential future interview, hopefully around draft time. We'll get Seth back because I've had this based on, I think it was either Seth's Twitter or something on Facebook or one of the social medias. He blasted the Bears for taking Roquan Smith, and I now just to pretend I'm as smart as Seth, will go around telling people like you can't take an inside linebacker in the first round. But we'll get insight like that when we talk to Seth around draft time. You see how I did that, Terry, where I tricked him into doing another to come back on the show.
Yeah, now he's obliged. He can't.
Now he's obliged to come back because we promised it to the people.
Yeah, you're not going to throw him any picks if he doesn't come on again.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I need those for my stat.
But so what we will do is we'll end this the way every interview does around Super Bowl time, the cheesiest way possible. Seth Galina, what's your pick?
My brain tells me the Rams. My heart tells me the Bengals. I mean, I think that's for a lot of people. I'm a Cincinnatian now. My office is in Cincinnati, so like.
Oh, you are? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you in Cincinnati right now?
No, I still live here, but when I go to PFF offices in Cincinnati. So.
Oh, okay.
Have you ordered your celebratory cigars yet?
Oh yeah, no. But I smoked them incessantly before then because I can't do myself. Yeah. So
how else would you do it? I mean, who has cigars and doesn't smoke them, right?
There you go.
So
I'm definitely not waiting for a Bengals Super Bowl with the smoke some cigars. That's another cursed franchise.
We might be 2 weeks removed from this conversation. Yeah. You never know.
Finally, admit that Skyline chili is gross.
Oh my goodness,
it's gross.
And I will eat it every time I go. And
Skyline chili?
Yeah, it's their I guess it's their poutine, I guess you would say.
In Cincinnati?
They're like late night type of. I mean, it's not really late night. Yeah, I mean, I would say it's exactly like their poutine.
What is it?
Spaghetti and like chili sauce, I guess, meat sauce. And,
I know what this is. I know.
Yeah, shredded cheese on it. It's just like it's like that. Okay, you want to do that, like whatever. It's just like the quality of ingredients is shoddy.
Yeah.
It's
like it's rough.
It's rough.
And I go, and like I said, I'll go and I'll eat it every friggin' time that I go there because I just I'm addicted to it.
Yeah, it's classic Midwest. Just like this is what we eat. You better fucking eat it too.
Yeah.
Just don't ask questions. This is what it is.
Definitely don't ask questions. That's the key. That's the key. Seth, thank you so much for joining us. Do check out his article on Pro Football Focus. It's awesome. Do listen to the Too High podcast. I don't know if you heard Seth talk about it. He's very shy about it, of course. He barely mentioned it through the interview. But it's excellent. Honestly, dude, super happy for you. Doing some great work. It's great to see you putting it out there and good to see you working, man.
Thank you, buddies.
Appreciate you coming on, Seth.
Anytime.
Talk to you draft season. So, gotcha.
Just gotta get that in at the end.
And we're back, guys. I don't know about you, but I love talking like X's and O's and 22-man views. So that was really fun for me.
I mean, Seth is great.
he's such a good person for that kind of content because he's a funny dude too. Like he's not dry at all. So it's
It didn't come out. I mean, it came out a little bit during the interview, but like if you get to know Seth, I don't know him too well, but from what I remember, like, and he's funny on Twitter. Like, he's a funny guy. Just, maybe next time he comes on, because he's gonna come on for sure. He has to.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we tricked him.
Yeah.
So
my first experience with Seth's content was when he was completely like crucifying Carson Wentz at one point, basically saying like, look at all these balls, they're awful. The read is good, the ball is awful, and like literally clip after clip after clip. And I'm like, this is the best content I've seen in forever. But we're going to rapid fire. I got 4 of them for you today. We're going to start with Werther's Originals. Chicago Blackhawks chairman Rocky Wirtz had an aggressive and angry reaction when being asked by Mark Lazarus about the Kyle Beach scandal in this particular clip.
A power imbalance between a coach and a player, and the powerlessness of a player in that situation. So what are the Blackhawks doing? What have the Blackhawks done? What will the Blackhawks do to empower a player in a similar situation to make sure that doesn't happen again?
I'm going to answer the question at the end. I think the report speaks for itself. The people that were involved are no longer here. We're not looking back at 2010. We're looking forward. And we're not going to talk about 2010. I know, and I'm not either. And we're not going to talk about what happened. We're moving forward. That is my answer. Now, what's your next question?
I can pick up to what we are doing today. And I think
No, I don't know. That's none of your business. That's none of your business. What we're going to do today is our business. I don't think it's any of your business. Because I don't think it's any of your business. You don't work for the company. If someone in the company asks that question, we'll answer it. And I think you should get on to the next subject. We're not going to talk about Kyle Beach. We're not going to talk about anything that happened. Now we're moving on.
Hey,
what more do I have to say? You want to keep asking the same question?
How are you fixing the problem? How are you fixing the problem? By not talking about it. Yeah, by not talking about it. We're going to fix all our problems by not talking about it. Said nobody ever. How, even if you don't feel like talking about it, do you realize what happened? Like, you don't have to talk about the actual action, but talk about what you're doing. And I don't know who the other person was that said, yeah, this is what we're going to be doing. And for him to shut him up, it's like, just tell us what you do. Tell us what communities you've been involved in. Tell us anything you've done that's gonna make you look better. Because right now you don't look good at all. Like, there's zero about you that looks good.
So the way I'm looking at this is, the follow-up question is, if you're the 18-year-old who's going to get drafted in the first round for the Blackhawks, how does he protect himself from rape?
Well, I mean, basically what we can tell is he can't, thanks to the Wirtz
because they're
family.
moving forward.
They're moving forward.
Hey, congrats. Kudos to you. Move forward.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but there was somebody trying to answer. You know who that was?
Was his son?
It was his son who actually runs the day-to-day operations. I felt so bad for him in the spot.
Imagine.
He's like, man, my old-ass dad doesn't understand the world of 2022. Let me try to help him. No, you sit down. You shut up. It's so emasculating. But then the other thing that got me, Terry, was he says, it's none of your business. He's a journalist. It's literally his business.
It's literally his business
questions.
to report the news on things that affect the sports that you
I don't
cover.
understand.
And the thing is that people rip on journalists, but journalists are also your best friend, right? If you tell them the information and it's valid, you don't lie to them, they'll publish that. I mean, for the most part, anyway. There's journalists out there that are shit, but for the most part, and Lazarus, he's very respected, and he came out with a whole in-depth look at it, and he's very sharp, and it was an honest question, and it was a very well-worded question. The Wirtz family, they're fucked. They're fucked. They're gonna have to be gone. They're gonna have to be gone.
All right, next, Ace of Spades. Las Vegas Aces player and 4-time WNBA star had some critical words to share about the WNBA, saying, yes, the WNBA, where a head coach can get paid 4 times the highest paid player's Supermax contract. Elmao, and y'all think I'm going to spend another season upgrading my seat on a flight to get to games out of my own pocket.
Crazy, huh? That's nuts to me. That part is the nuts part. Like, if you're paying out of pocket for your own travel to go to a game where you're getting paid less than the coach that nobody knows,
well, first off, why isn't it a chartered flight for the team?
Well, we can't get into. I don't think they have enough money to buy private planes and
then
stuff
rent
like that.
a private
but like,
plane. Like, what are you doing?
Sure, but when you're spending so much on your coach, like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, because you're flying coach, maybe.
So there's a couple of things. One is, Terry, for a long time, I had an issue with the NCAA, and I still kind of do, even though there's the NIL. The issue is you can't say there's no money for players when you're paying coaches tens of millions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
And so the thing with the WNBA, there's a few things at play. If you don't invest in the sport, it's not going to grow. Also, when you say there's not a lot of money, they're largely owned by guys who own NBA franchises. And those teams have chartered planes already. They already own chartered planes. The other thing to consider is these women make a lot more money in the off season when they play in Europe. And the only reason they play in the W is for the prestige of playing in the W, right? So if you're supposed to be this great nation, right, and the land of opportunity, then where is the opportunity? When they go overseas, your people are going overseas and getting paid much more money than they're getting paid in a league that's actually a great product. If you've watched the WNBA in the last 3 or 4 years, it's actually an excellent product.
I watched one full game, a WNBA game this year. One full game.
It's awesome though, right? Like I know it's
good basketball.
Our priority, like it's a great game, and these are serious athletes.
My girlfriend was asking me, how close are we to seeing a woman in one of the 4 major sports? And I said the only sport that it would happen in is basketball, because the girls in that they're just as tall, they can move, they can dunk, they can shoot. It's going to be the first one we see where a professional athlete in the 4 major sports becomes a woman playing it actually in the regular season and in the playoffs. The only thing is that I just don't think it's going to happen within the next 5 to 10 years.
I'd be surprised, but we will see a woman behind the bench in the NBA as a head coach in the next 5 to 6 years.
Yes,
they've done a great job with that program. Great job.
That's a definite.
Terry, I was going to say I think hockey goaltender might be the other option, which might be very close.
We almost had it. Brandon Leon.
Oh yeah, she was an exhibition. It was an exhibition game, but I get what you're saying, Eags, but even as a goalie, they still need to have some certain size. If you look at the goalies nowadays, they're huge. The pads are heavy. You got to be able to take it out into consideration. I'm not saying it is probably the second most logical, but the second most obvious answer. But I just don't see it happening in hockey.
Baseball to me would be more obvious. It's just there's not a program for it. But the thing is that the problem with the NBA is not the height. It's the size. LeBron James, 275 pounds. That's hard to contend with. You know what I mean?
She would have to come off the bench, but it'll happen in the NBA before anything else. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, next, Canadian Bacon. It's been a historic week for Team Canada for the World Cup qualifiers. They had 3 games this past weekend, all of which they played without their star player, Alphonso Davis, and a game against Team USA. And they won all 3 of those games, securing 9 points, still holding first place in the standings, and are 1 draw away from a World Cup seed.
I don't even know when the last time they made the World Cup was. In 94? No, that was USA.
86.
86, that's what it was. So I've lived an entire life. I was born in 86. I've lived an entire lifetime without seeing Canada in the World Cup. And they had some pretty decent teams. There was the year they won the Gold Cup. I want to say in 2000. That was a good team. But this team, watching this team, they're fun to watch, and they're solid. They're the best team in the conference, and that's hands down. You can see that, and you can't argue it. The fact that they did this without Alphonso Davies is another thing. He's one of the best players in the world, let alone Canada. So the fact they did it without him is crazy, and I'm really excited. I'm buying a Team Canada jersey. Fuck it.
They got me to watch soccer. That's a big deal. Deal. And Greg Berhalter's comments after the U.S. men's head coach saying that they outplayed Canada and that Canada just sort of capitalized on opportunities. Nah, man, that ain't gonna fly. We're not gonna be the polite Canadians. We're better than you. Sorry, it happened. We won all of our games. We did it without our best player. You got several of your players playing top programs in Europe, and you still couldn't get it together. Maybe your coaching is the problem.
I just love the fact that Team Canada has a better chance of making the World Cup than Italy does, and that hurts as
That's wild.
Italian descent.
Wild.
And our last story for today, Unworthy Revenant. Mad Dog Chris Russo blessed us with some amazing audio about a somewhat famous actor and his sport allegiances. So let's go ahead and listen in on that.
Anytime, Eagle.
Yeah, anytime you want to press play.
It's playing. It's just being stupid.
This is hardly rapid.
Another guy. He wouldn't know Norm Van Brocklin. Oh my God!
Rewind,
What a disgrace.
rewind.
Yeah, I got it from the beginning.
And Leonard
The best part from the
DiCaprio
beginning.
at a football game. You got to be kidding me. Leonard DiCaprio.
So Leonard DiCaprio.
Leonard DiCaprio.
Go back.
Really?
Go back. I want to.
Good actor. Go back. Not bad. And Leonard DiCaprio at a football game. You got to be kidding me. Leonard DiCaprio.
Leonard
DiCaprio. Really?
Leonard.
Good actor. Not bad.
Not bad.
Another guy. He wouldn't know Norm Van Brocklin. Oh, my God. What a disgrace.
What?
We take a timeout. We continue. Quarter after.
Do you have to have dementia to be on this radio station?
Oh my God.
Do you have to be clinically stupid? Do you have to be institutionalized to be on this radio show? Because that's what it seems like right now.
It's like 24 seconds, and there's so many things that he got the name of one of the most famous actors in the world, Leonard DiCaprio, wrong.
Leonard DiCaprio.
He thinks he shouldn't be at a football game? What? Why not? Like, Terry, did you ever see Will Chamberlain play?
No, I haven't.
Then you should never go to an NBA game. That's the argument. It's like, if people died before you were born or played before you were an adult, then you shouldn't go see a pro sport.
No, exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So at one point, like when we're all dead and buried, there will be 0 people in the stadium. It'll be just like COVID. That's what Chris Russo wants, another lockdown.
Can't wait to have dementia so I can have a radio show.
Isn't that what this is? Maybe I don't get what the show is.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe we just need to start fucking being idiots. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And that's our show for this week, boys.
Word.
That was awesome. Honestly, great show. So many things. We had to run through that first segment just because of how much information there was. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for liking, subscribing, reviewing, all that stuff. Please do so if you haven't done it. It's super important. We like to provide the content, and that helps us keep doing it. Eagle, Terry, thank you for everything you've done. And for everyone else, thank you for letting me be myself. Awesome.